What is going on? My name is Dan. I'm about to do a reaction to Avenged Sevenfold MIA. This is a fan-generated video, I guess. It's a lyrics on screen, full HD it says, so I guess it's just a lyric video. It was about the best I could do without just looking at, album cover art the entire time, so I figured we'd get into this. My best guess. This was a recommendation from multiple people to check out, so seemed interesting. We'll give it a shot. I don't know what it's about. I don't know if I've ever heard it before, but we're gonna see. I might have heard it, but it doesn't ring any bells. Anyways, let's jump into it. Just off the start here, I don't recognize this.
Staring at the carnage, praying that the sun would never rise, living another day in disguise. These feelings can't be right. Lend me your courage to stand up and fight. Oh, tonight.
So far, leading into this, almost a minute into this, and it's a nice, real subtle beginning to the song. Now, what Avenged Sevenfold likes to do a lot of times is they'll start off the songs like this, and then all of a sudden they'll come in with crashing drums and some guitar, and then he'll start screaming or something. I'm wondering if that's what's going to happen. So that's always really exciting. Or they're going to take it a different route, which I wouldn't be surprised with either, because sometimes they do different shit. But let's see where it goes.
Stand up and fight.
On the terms of their other songs, not a super heavy drop. Still pretty nice though. I dig it. Eyelash.
Is on and on. To challenge me, you must be strong. I'll walk your land, but don't be long. 2 million soldiers can't be wrong. It's no fun, but I've been here before. I'm far from home and I'm fighting your war. The way I've been to this, I wanted better things. Some are scared, others killing for fun. I shot a mother right in front of her son. Take us from my guns is missing. Please erase my dreams. Fight for honor, fight for your life. Pray to God that our side is right. No, we won, but still may lose until I make it home to you. I see your mother's filled with tears. Grew up so fast, where did those years go? Memories won't let you cry unless I don't return tonight.
Alright, so this song looks like it's obviously about the military. MIA, missing in action is what that usually stands for. Now they're going into all the things here, whether or not it's justified going to war or not, what are the motives they're even being sent there for, and at the end of the day, once you're over there, your main mission is to make it back alive. Yeah, it's, I don't want to say too much until they go further into it. I don't know how many more verses they'll have going into different stuff about it, but I'll move into that a little later in the song.
so fast when 10 those years go. Memories will let you cry unless I don't return tonight. Staring at the gun, it's praying that the sun would never rise. Living another day in disguise. These feelings can't be right. Lend me your courage, stand up and fight. Watching the dead don't rise.
So real quick, it seems like this is almost like an inner monologue thought of someone who is in the military, and they're kind of confused of why they're there, and they kind of want to go home, but they need to continue on. And it's like, you're just praying to God that your side is on the right side of history, basically. It's that's not something that I think you'll really ever know. The only people who are going to know that are the people who are in the offices making those executive decisions to go do these things. And what they tell you, you'll never know if it's true. They're never going to tell you, and you'll be dead before they ever release that information. Why do you think when all these major things happen, they set it so that the information is released 70 or 80 years down the line? It's so that whoever was involved is dead and gone by then, and there's nothing you can do. I personally think that kind of shit should be illegal. You shouldn't be able to put information away until everyone's dead who is involved. That's, like, sorry for the language, but that is fucked up. And you're seeing it already with all this stuff that's going on in the country today, all this information. Like, we don't know what's actually going on, and it's so crazy for us to understand what is actually the truth, because you have one person might say something and then the other person will say something completely different, and then we don't, like, you used to be able to, at least you would think, you used to be able to look to the news for truth and stuff like that. Like, what was on the news you thought as truth. And now it's so obvious to everyone that they just lie on a daily basis. It's like, why even bother listening to it anymore? We already knew politicians lied to us. Now the news lies to us. And then everyone, all of our neighbors, not necessarily are lying to us, but they're just, everyone's just easily deceived if you're not going to keep digging and digging and digging. And then if you go too far into it, then you're a conspiracy theorist, and then no one wants to listen to you again. And I mean, and the problem with it is there's like slight bits of truth around all of it. What the politicians say, there's sometimes slight bits of truth, but usually that's just the cloak for their other means. And then you have the news, they give you slight bits of truth, and then there's that narrative that they want to push. And it's just, we're all just getting these little bits of truth and then trying to sort it out among this giant mess of absolutely nothingness that's really just put out there to cause discourse, so that who's in power is able to just do whatever they want. And it sucks for the people who are in the military, because there are people who go over there to fight, to actually try to defend our home and who lives here, like our people. And like, there is truth in that. You are doing that, but whether or not every single mission and everything is justified is really not your concern, because you're never going to know. They're never going to tell you. We do need a military. We need to protect our home, and our government does that, and also has things of their own interest as well. So the bad thing is you're going to be working for their own interests while also protecting our home. So you kind of do both, but you won't know what is what while you're doing it. But that's no fault to the people in the military, though, because they're just doing what they know to be good for the country. And whether or not someone else abuses them into doing something that they want is not their fault.
Wondering how I'm alive. Strangest blood on my hands. Shot all I can. There were no silent nights watching your brothers all die. To destroy all their plans with no thought of me. No thought of me.
Nice little guitar solo. Alright. I don't know when the song came out, but just from the sound of the music alone, it sounds like it's older. Um, I would say this almost sounds like it's came out before Nightmare. I don't know. Let me know when this came out if you guys know. You don't really see a lot of songs these days with these long instrumental breaks where they're just, doing solos and all kinds of like just really focusing on the instruments. I think that's really cool, but that seems like something that doesn't really happen anymore. It was a lot more common a few decades ago. That's why I also feel like the style seems like a little bit more their earlier days. Um, Not 100% sure, but that's just what it seems to me. But I like it. It's cool. It's different. Nice. Brought it back down, a little nice and soft here.
Walk the city lonely, memories that are now passing by. A murderer walks your streets tonight. Forgive me for my crimes. Don't forget that I was so young, but so scared in the name of God and
I like that guitar there at the end. It's nice. All right, that was Avenged Sevenfold, MIA. Now, I don't know if that was like their message or if they were doing a song about a specific person and his mental thought. If it was like their message on like military personnel, I don't necessarily agree with it because sort of the consensus I get from people who are in the military as well doesn't fully line up with that. Um, but if that's just like kind of the image of how someone feels who was in the military, basically putting yourself in the shoes of someone who's doing that, I can understand how someone may end up feeling like that. Um, but from talking to people who are in the military, I've known multiple active duty personnel and a few people that actually went overseas. It's more the consensus, as far as I know. I've never been in the military myself. This is just from talking to people. Is that a lot of these hard, like mental issues and things they struggle with are less about the people they are fighting and more about the people that they were with who they lost. And I believe they mentioned that as well. But they were really hammering home where it was as if this person in the military fighting was as if they were a murderer. And I don't know a lot of people who are in the military that have, been in combat that actually feel like they are a murderer. I mean, I don't doubt that it doesn't happen. It definitely could. It just depends on, I guess, your view of whether or not. Well, it depends on who it is as well. If there's people fighting back with you, I wouldn't call that murder. If you end up just, shooting civilians, one, that's a war crime. Two, yeah, I guess that's murder. I don't know if they're talking about that specifically, maybe. I missed that, if that's what it was about. But if you're, you know, who you're fighting against and they're shooting back at you just as much as you're shooting at them, I wouldn't consider that being a murder. um, but yeah, if you're looking at what they actually think about, like what are the most troubling things to them, it's usually the people they're with and, the casualties that you suffer on your side. You become like a family in the military, and, you know, those are the hardest parts of what you're doing when you go overseas and when you fight in these battles and stuff like that, is just dealing with the loss of the people who are the ones getting you through the situation you're trying to survive together. um, but again, there's a lot of different possibilities. If I wouldn't just outright say this is what they were saying, but it almost sounded like they were saying that they were like murderers just going over there doing whatever. I don't fully understand what the song was about, but also they have another song, Critical Acclaim, that I reacted to, which kind of speaks on the exact opposite of what this sounded like. So I'm a little confused on what this is about, and I am not attributing this to them because I am mixed between their two songs, because one is about them supporting the military and telling people to basically shut up when they're talking trash on those people who are over there to protect your freedoms. And then MIA was talking about, well, it was talking about the opposite, basically, how they're murderers. But that's why I think MIA could be referring to a specific person and his thought process, because it was also seemed like it was talking in the first person, in some of the lyrics. So if it was about someone's personal opinion, from being in the military and over the things that happened, and they're kind of telling the story from a first person point of view, then I understand that as well. But if you're going after the military as a whole over being murderers, it's like, I don't know if I would go. I would go there personally. In fact, I would say the opposite. If anyone is at fault for any sort of wrongdoing or harm, it's, the high tier generals and our politicians. Those are the people you need to be calling murderers, because the people in the military are just taking commands and they're told that they're fighting bad guys and protecting us at home. That's what you're told. They're basically being used as tools and weapons. And, it's like, you go down to the bottom of it. Are you going to blame the person who's pulling the trigger, or are you going to blame or are you going to blame the gun of it? Which, in a way, that was a bad reference, I guess, because the military personnel are pulling the triggers, but then the government is using them as a trigger to pull that trigger, if that makes sense, because it wasn't the people in the military's decision to go there. You sign up to protect your country, and then the politicians and the generals send you on these missions, and they already have decided what's going to be done. And even if you don't go, they're going to have other people do it. They are going to get done what they want to have done. So if you have an issue with anything going on with the military, you got to talk to the people upstairs. I'll just leave it at that. I feel like that's a good assertion here. It's the main point I would like to make. But I would like you guys to let me know what this was like specifically about, because I was a little confused on it. I kind of know the gist of how they feel about topics about this, and this one threw me off a little bit. But maybe you guys can clarify it for me, because I was not. I didn't get it. It wasn't super clear. Like, I got the idea of it, but it wasn't super clear to me whether or not it was like a first-person thing. If they're talking about it in general, just help me sort those ideas out. But let me know what you thought about this. Like I said, give me your thoughts on it. Make sure you give me more suggestions for Avenged Sevenfold, anything else I haven't done. If they got any other interesting songs. I actually have not heard this song before, so it was cool to hear an Avenged Sevenfold song for the first time in a while. But if you like this video, make sure you hit the like button. If you like the other videos that I'm making, feel free to subscribe, because that would help me out a lot. I do have a decent list of Avenged Sevenfold content on a playlist if you'd like to check that out. So, for the last couple months I've been doing Avenged Sevenfold, so they're one of my favorite bands, and I was checking out a lot of their live performances, especially the one in the LBC. Gotta love it. It's back when the Rev was still fucking tearing everything up, It's real nice to look back at those days. I wasn't really able to enjoy them because either I was really young or not alive yet. I don't know if they were around before I was born, but I was still really young when they first started. So I didn't really get to enjoy them. Only really figured them out maybe a few years ago. So it's been a cool journey, though. I appreciate you guys sticking around and watching, especially if you watched to this point, because I've just been rambling now at this point. But thank you anyways, and I will catch you around.